Okay, welcome back everyone to another episode of the Consistency Podcast. I'm Andre Robinson. I'm joined with FLW. We have a special show in store for everyone today. As many people know, June is Black Music Month, so we couldn't end the month without having a discussion about some music. So Frank came up with a nice prompt for us to start with today. I'll let him explain, and then we'll kind of get into the show.
Yes, so before that, last week we had Juneteenth,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of celebration all around the country. And for those people who haven't taken the time to learn about it, it would be worth your while to understand why that holiday is important. And then you could see that, I'm wearing this cap for a reason.
Oh yeah,
I
we did
grew
miss that.
I grew up, in our last episode, we talked a little bit about the Knicks and what was going on. And honestly, I don't even remember all of the context for which they came up, except that there was a lot of excitement surrounding them at the time, and they actually pulled it off. So shout out to them. And it's an amazing storyline when you think about Jalen and his dad
Yeah.
being on the same team. And the biggest thing is how much he sacrificed. My understanding is that he was willing to give up as much as 100 million in order to provide the cap space to get the teammates that he thought would help win a championship.
Yeah.
So sometimes that level of unselfishness is what it takes to get the job done. So that's as much as I want to say about that whole thing. And that probably was the biggest thing I wanted to say about that whole thing. So I came up with the idea of each one of us, Dre and I, spotlighting five artists that we think made or is making a significant contribution to Black music. Now, of course, there are a lot of other artists that could have been included. We just decided to spotlight five. So we didn't say that these are the greatest of all time or anything like that. even though arguably some of these people would be in that conversation. So anyway, um, I guess I'll start it off with an artist that I'm always, as an educator and as somebody that's spent my life working with young people, I'm always trying to introduce concepts and principles and people that they may not have been exposed to. And anybody that sings, especially if you consider yourself a vocalist, you should know who Leontyne Price is. Leontyne Price was the first Black woman, the first Black person to really be a major opera singer. And she had a show that was featured, I believe, on NBC in the 1950s, if I remember correctly, which was huge again because even today, Black people are underrepresented in opera and classical music. One of the things that got my attention about her is that, you know, with classical and opera music, a big piece of what goes along with that at the end of a particular set, if you really enjoyed the artist, you would give them an ovation. And you have curtain calls. And Leontine, when she made her last performance at the Met, I believe, Metropolitan Opera, she recorded one of the longest applauses, even though one of her contemporaries got, I think, an hour and 9 minutes worth of applause. She got 42 minutes. I've been still trying to kind of wrap my brain around what that looks like. And I've been in the audience and I've been enamored by jazz greats like Marcus Miller, and I've had an opportunity to see some great performers. But 42 minutes, that's a long time for people to be clapping. I don't
Yeah.
even know. I don't know. I don't even know if I could clap that long.
People
So
just sitting down, standing back up.
yeah. So that was when you talk about gratitude. That was just amazing. Pavarotti. I think it was Pavarotti. He's the one who I think got an hour and 9 minutes, 165 curtain call. So for her to sort of be right under that just shows you what she meant to opera music. And then she was for America when she was doing her thing. She was the diva. She was the top artist in opera. So she's one of the people that I wanted to, and um, I wanted to point out since I know that you're gonna share some things about certain characters in hip hop. We talk about freestyling a lot and we freestyle quite a bit on the Consistency podcast. Well, in her role as Aida, for those people who follow opera, that's a pretty significant role. And most, I would say, a great deal of opera stars, they follow a script because they're acting. But Leontyne made it a point to approach that character organically each time. She freestyled it. And that's what's so unique about that's one of the things that's really unique about Black artists. I don't know of any group of people that freestyle better than Black people. And that's probably how we came up with jazz. But anyway, I'm gonna pause there. Because jazz is all about improv.
Right.
That's what jazz is. This is improv for the most part. Yeah. So I think we'll just go back and forth. And
Right.
I wanted to start off with
Okay. Well, then speaking of jazz, on my list I got Herbie Hancock. Um, it was kind of interesting because I got introduced to him in elementary school from like one of my music classes, just a regular music class. I think my music teacher was just playing some Herbie Hancock that day, and I was just like, I guess I must have been really impressed with it because he ended up making me like a CD of Herbie Hancock, and I remember I had like a little karaoke machine where you could put like a CD in it, so I would play that all the time. I don't even remember what album it was, but just from that point on, I always knew who Herbie Hancock was, and so anytime somebody mentioned some jazz, I'd be like, oh yeah, Herbie Hancock, and then as I got older, I listened to more of his stuff, and it's just always that was always my, I guess, foundation for jazz music. And then my mom would listen to jazz music like in the morning, but it was one of those things where it wasn't necessarily a voice that I was attracted to, or it wasn't a voice I was identifying with music. It was just the actual music. So I think that was a big part for me personally. I know he's a big jazz artist. I wouldn't say, he's probably the most influential, but just on my music palette, I would say that he had a big impact there. And I, every once in a while I'll go and just play some, like, I think probably like a month ago, I was playing some Herbie Hancock just to pass the time, whatever. But it's always feel good music. I don't know too many like facts about him, just because I was young listening to it, and I had to kind of go back, and so I couldn't really name a specific album. Like I said, I don't even remember what that first album that he played. I was just looking for it because I feel like if I saw the cover, I could remember it. I know the Watermelon Man. What was it? I think That's one of the songs or that cover. I remember that cover vividly, where it's like he got the machine face and it's blue in the background, orange. So yeah, Herbie, and I guess his name too was just like Double H was always pretty cool. So yeah, shout out to Herbie Hancock. That'll be my first influential person.
Yeah, Herbie Hancock. Yes, Herbie Hancock is extremely influential. And I was trying to remember. I was trying to remember the name of the artist because I think Herbie did something recently with somebody, one of the contemporary jazz guys. I couldn't remember his name. Anyway, I'll look it up. And but yeah, Herbie is very important. And somebody that influenced Herbie and influenced so many people is the genius Ray Charles.
Hmm.
Now, Ray Charles, I could have chosen a lot of people to be a part of the five to spotlight, but I felt like I had to pick Ray because one, Ray was a contemporary of Quincy Jones.
Hmm.
And Quincy Jones once told the story, when I say contemporary, they grew up in music together. And Quincy Jones told the story of going to visit Ray Charles. Most people who know of Ray Charles know that he lost his sight at a young age.
Hmm.
And a lot of people also saw the movie about Ray Charles called Ray, which
Jamie
Foxx just whew, he did an amazing job. So people who don't know about Ray Charles, that movie will do a good job of giving you some background about him. But anyway, Quincy Jones tells the story of visiting Ray Charles at Ray Charles' place. At this time, Ray was, legally blind. And Ray was in the kitchen frying chicken.
Hmm.
And Quincy was, tripping out because he's wondering, hey, what's this guy doing around fire? Because this is before a lot of us have electric stoves and
Yeah.
ovens and all that stuff now, but he was dealing with real flame,
Hmm.
you know? So that was just an example of how different Ray Charles was. And I think a lot of what made him different had to do with his mom, because once it was discovered, and this was a fact that I remember from the movie actually, but once it became clear that Ray was losing his sight, his mother didn't pity him. His mother wanted him to lead as much of a quote unquote normal life as possible. She was tough on him.
Hmm.
And so I think that's why he was able to do so much that a lot of people with sight haven't been able to accomplish. What makes Ray so amazing, and part of the reason why they call him a genius, is because he started off in jazz, but Ray was jazz, Ray was blues,
Hmm.
Ray was soul, Ray was R&B, Ray was country, Ray was gospel, Ray was rock.
A little bit of everything.
Ray, and imagine, it's just mind-boggling that he was this guy who, for most of us, for a lot of us, would pity because, oh man, this guy can't see, but he must have been seeing something. He was seeing something. You know, we, the culture kind of quasi worships somebody that can go between two or three. This guy, he was, and so when you would listen to him, you had to try to figure out where are we here, because he was all over the map, and legitimately all over the map, with hits all over the map, hits in country, hits in soul. So Ray Charles, he's an Albany, Georgia native. So shout out to where we're at. Rakim famously said, "It's not where you're from, it's where you're at."
Yeah.
Somebody said that was the biggest lie told in hip hop, but that's another. We're not Rakim was not on the list, so we're not going to get into that statement. But anyway, raised from Albany, and Leontyne was from Mississippi, so a lot of talent from the South, a lot of talent.
Yeah.
So that's Ray Charles.
Okay. I think for my next person, I'll say Anita Baker. And I'll say her because all of her music still in today's time sounds fresh. It doesn't matter how many times you've heard Caught Up in the Rapture, Body. So all of those songs, like, whenever they come on, it still hits like, I'm assuming how it hit when she first dropped it. I'm sure at that point it was crazy because they never heard anything like that before. But yeah, she's just so influential just because of the longevity that her music has into the like I said, you'll be at a club and then they'll throw on some Anita Baker. It don't matter. Like it can kind of go on any time. It's almost a cheat code. Like you play some Anita Baker, people gonna like it. So she's just influential by that impact alone. Like I don't even I think as time has gone on, more artists have had access to create more music, but the density of her catalog is really kind of unmatched. And I mean, there's probably some people who that she's the first person to come to my mind off the kind of off of the top of my head when I'm thinking of R&B full catalogs. I mean, of course, you got Whitney Houston, but yeah, for me, Anita is like, okay, this is the what people call the cleaning Sunday cleaning music and just the real soulful music. So yeah, Anita is she's the truth when it comes to that for me.
Yeah, and she's still actively touring too, because I know a talented musician, Ryan Kilgore, who who's had the opportunity to play with her. And it's one thing to have music that people remember, and it's another thing to still have shows that you're selling out around the country. And that's to your point, if her music wasn't still relevant, people wouldn't be coming to see her. So yeah, that's a wonderful pick. And you're right. Even even Gen Z rocks with Anita Baker. She, she's kind of like Sade. You know, Sade hasn't she hasn't had a bunch of studio work that she put in, but she comes out of I don't know if it's because the stash gets low. I don't know what her motivation is when she comes out of hiding. But I remember, shucks, maybe it must have been about 8 years ago when she came out of hiding. I had a lady that I was talking to, and when Sade came to Atlanta, she went to see her twice because I think she played 2 dates in Atlanta. This lady was, and that just shows you how these artists like Anita and Sade, they just pass the test of time. And Anita hasn't done a studio album in a minute that I'm aware of, but she's still really relevant. Good choice. Good choice. So the next person that I want to rock with is who I consider to this day to probably still be the most significant artist that gospel music has ever seen. And I know that's a bombastic statement when you think about CC Winans and Kirk Franklin and Richard Smallwood, but in so many ways, Mahalia Jackson opened the door for those artists. First of all, she was Dr. King's go-to singer, and Dr. King would often invite her to rallies, and she would show up. She would sing. Now, one thing, an interesting difference between Mahalia and Leontyne. Leontyne was the epitome of confidence. She was one of those artists that she would often say she loved her own sound. She liked there was no voice that she liked more than her own. And that, some people would be off put by that, but that was just her truth. And so they were asking Leontyne, how did she feel about that first opportunity to play at the Met? She said she didn't feel anything. She wasn't intimidated. She wasn't nervous. Well, I bring that up because Mahalia Jackson, way after she was selling out arenas, and by the way, at one time, as a gospel artist, and they kept trying to get Mahalia Jackson to do jazz because, like Kirk Franklin, even up to now, people still feel like he's not really doing gospel music. Or during her time, people would critique Mahalia Jackson because the rhythms that she would use were different from what gospel music and church music was accustomed to. And it had a lot of parallels with jazz. And they really tried to, because of how many records she was selling, they were really trying to get her to cross over. She refused to. And at one time, I don't remember the year, but she was the top selling artist of any genre in the United States. So I don't think we've ever had another gospel artist to do that. Now, I know across the board, and I learned a lot from you, Dre, about this, across the board, record sales are down compared to what they had been in times past. But Mahalia Jackson, she was just a beast. She blew up all kinds of barriers, and I don't know if we would have gospel music as we have it today if she had not been. As a matter of fact, I wish this play returns. There was a wonderful play that came to Metro Atlanta. I think the title was Mahalia. I know it was in Atlanta. I think it toured a little bit, but if anybody gets a chance to see that, it would be worth your while. Wonderful play. Accounting for. That's my third pick, Mahalia Jackson.
Okay. For me, number 3, I'm gonna go with 50 Cent. So we're getting a little more modern now. So 50 was, to my recollection, my first favorite rapper. When I was growing up, I'm from New York originally, so he was Jamaica, Queens. That's where my grandmother lived. So just hearing about somebody from Jamaica, Queens, I was like, okay, that's cool. And when 50 Cent first started coming out, that's when I first had access to a computer, and I could kind of listen to some music on my own. Back then it was AOL, so I don't know if anybody remember, we used to get AOL disc CDs, and then you put it in, and then you get internet for you could get internet for a week with the CD. That's the craziest thing. So then I remember being on AOL Music, and that's when Eminem was out and everything. So that was me. I guess that was kind of a step for me into just black music on my own, listening, because my parents was listening to R&B music. They probably played a little bit of rap at that time. I wasn't really paying attention to the music they were playing too specifically at that age. But then I guess that would have been around 5th or 6th grade, so I finally started having some agency over what I could listen to. Actually, maybe even as early as 4th grade, because I remember somebody had made me actually a actual burned CD of one of 50 Cent's projects, and I had it on a walk. That was back when I actually had a Walkman, so I was listening to it. So
you're taking people way back.
Yeah, I'm taking myself back. This me in elementary school, so that's probably the last sightings of Walkman CD players and stuff. So And yeah, that was right before MP3 players came out. So, but it was like you could listen to, you'd hear them on the radio, and then you'd have a chance to find more songs. So that was kind of, I guess, when it'd be like, oh, well, you like somebody on the radio. Now I could listen to this song whenever I want to because of the internet. And now you can find even more songs that weren't typically being played on the radio. So that's kind of how I think he developed into being one of my favorite artists at that point. And then, of course, he dropped the movie, the Get Rich or Die Trying, which really made him a living legend at that point, because you like, oh, you watching this video or this movie of him, and then he drops the album. So yeah, 50 Cent, real big influence on hip hop, to the point where I guess that made me pay attention to actual hip hop. Prior to that, I probably was just like, okay, I hear a song I like, but now I'm like, okay, well, what is this genre? Because this don't sound like the Backstreet Boys. This don't sound like NSYNC or anything like that. So, yeah, that's why I'll put him number 3. Well, this ain't in a particular order. It's kind of actually going in the way the artist chronologically from my list. So not necessarily say 50 over Anita Baker or anything like that. I was just saying that's kind of how our music was revealed to me, or kind of how I remember it influentially.
So a couple of things. One, when you talk about 50 in his movie, you make me think of a question: where his movie fits in the catalog of hip hop movies. You know, how does it bode among those other classic hip hop movies? So that's a whole nother conversation to be had. And then when you mention Eminem, you make me ask an even more dangerous question: whether or not black, quote unquote, black music is restricted to people who happen to be black, because some people would consider the music that Eminem has spent his career doing as black music, even though Eminem is not black. So interesting, interesting question. I know where most people would land on that, but I think it's still an interesting question to pose.
I mean, I think really, realistically, I think just since it was Black Music Month, I wouldn't pick Eminem, but he definitely had a huge impact on me as well when it comes to just hip hop in general. Cause uh, I think that was Recovery might have been the first album that I personally like purchased, like first hip hop album that I actually purchased. I remember the first CD I ever got was probably, I want to say the first CD I got was probably like Backstreet Boys, and I think that was in like a Burger King menu, like it was like a Happy Meal, some certain thing. But I also remember buying the NSYNC album. So that was just young, listening to pop boy bands or whatever. So that was way before then. So I remember hearing Eminem, but I wasn't that into music until I moved down to Georgia. So when I was like 12, so prior to that, I wasn't really listening to much hip hop. But my friends at the time up in New York, I think they were watching like MTV, and so Eminem was big there. So that's kind of how I found out about Eminem and 50 Cent at the same time. And I think I was probably starting to watch like 106 and Park around that age as well. So yeah, so just seeing him, and I think Eminem being as big as he is opened up the door for 50 Cent to be as big as he is, obviously, since they had signed him. But so kind of off of the coattails of that, 50 Cent was just very in my face. So he was really one of the only artists I knew. So it wasn't necessarily like I liked him more than I guess Ja Rule at the time, or I just wasn't really. I didn't. 50 Cent was marketed better to the kids, I guess, at that time. So he was just more relevant to me. But that's kind of a big doing of Eminem and kind of helping him cross over. So that first music video that he dropped, well, it was like that was crazy to be. So I'm like, this is a debut album, like, and he's coming with this Dr. Dre and all of that. So yeah, 50 came in with a big splash, and I mean, he's still for black entertainment, not even just music anymore. So he's kind of more um, gotten that he still uses the rapper persona to kind of get some of his opinions off and kind of still move around the way he's accustomed moving around, but he's definitely changed into like more of a business mogul, of course, and has his TV stuff going on, so does a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Queens has done good by hip hop. You know, there's lot of, a lot of good rap that came out of Queens. So shout out to Queen. The next person on my spotlight list is when I think about soul music. This man, I- I'm tempted to say if you were to define soul music, his picture should be right next to the definition for soul music, and that's Otis Redding. I remember my mother telling me, and this is before I really knew who Otis Redding was, but growing up, I always appreciated music and liked to listen to a lot of different kinds of music. And before I knew who Otis Redding was, she told me how she cried real tears when he tragically, passed away from the plane wreck that took his life.
Hmm. I didn't even know he
You
passed away
know,
like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's funny that you say that because some of us believe because of the moves that he was trying to make, way before Prince and other artists were fighting to retain their masters, Otis Redding was looking to retain his masters, have his own, and mysteriously, he, Sam Cooke, and a lot of those people who were on that same bent, the record executive found a way. They found a way to do what they do. Uh, and one of those people that was alleged to make people disappear, he went on a couple of days ago. And, there's been people who have been saluting Jive, and I'm sure that there's some things that should be said about the exposure that came by his hands, but there's a lot of loss that allegedly came by his hands as well. So um, Otis Redding, he left us way too soon. He's from Macon, Georgia. In fact, the Macon Museum of, I think it's called the African American Macon Museum or something like that. It's the museum that Macon kind of dedicated to African Americans. They had a whole exhibit on different music stars that came out of Macon, which James Brown is another one that came out of that city. And I would encourage people to learn more about Otis Redding's story because there's a whole generation that may have even heard some of his music and don't really know who he is. His music is popular in jingles, probably his most popular song, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, has been featured in movies and so forth. So Otis Redding is somebody worth knowing. Otis Redding, the voice for soul, voice for soul.
Speaking of Otis, my next person is sampled Otis on on Watch the Thrones. That's Kanye West, known Ye, formerly known as Kanye West. Uh, Huge musical influence. So this actually kind of goes back to the 50 Cent time because they had that little face off, Kanye and 50, and that really represented a big shift in hip hop from how it was originally consumed to how it was going to be consumed moving forward, and more the personas of who's pushing hip hop to the next stage. And so that was it was Curtis versus the Graduation album by Kanye. And I was very torn between them because I'm like, this is my favorite rapper, because 50 was still just, especially coming from New York at the time. So now I'm living in Georgia, and so I'm repping 50 Cent hard. Like, yeah, we got the best rapper in the world. And then Kanye coming, I'm like, oh, I do like Kanye. And it wasn't, everyone else was from Georgia, so they were like, oh, nah, Gucci's better. They were just saying different people, but I'm like, I didn't listen to any of that. But then when it came to Kanye, I'm like, he might be better. Just with the type of music, and like I was like really relating to the music at that time. And it was also, now I had more access to online music as well. So now, yeah, you could listen to people in Chicago, you could listen to people in California. So that's really how I started expanding my music palette. And I think really when it came to the quality of music is when I was like, that's when I was like, okay, yeah, 50, Kanye West is on a different level when it comes to just the different sounds that he's using. I think I remember, I guess it was one of the songs with Twista, but it was like one of the reasons why I wanted to play the viola when I was in elementary school, because I think I heard it. I want to say the violin on Overnight Celebrity, one of those songs. But it was just like, and I was like, oh yeah, I can get it. I feel like I might have had the viola already, but that was like a song I was like, oh yeah, if I could really play, I would want to play that song. So yeah, it just showed me different instruments, and I guess really it made, when I found out that he was making the beats too and rapping, so I'm like, oh yeah, this is different. And then just moving forward, seeing the different projects that he created. I always say My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was one of those albums where it's like he actually showed what putting time into something would, could get you out. Could the final product that putting time, like, because he was talking, I saw him doing interviews about how long it took him to make the song Power. He was like, it took like 5,000 man hours, and them, but he was breaking it down into like 40-hour work weeks. Okay, we put X amount of hours into this. So then I was like, okay, that's the what it takes to get quality out. You have to put in time, effort, and care, and then you get out something like that, where it was just like, that was probably one of the first projects where I was like, I couldn't say anything like, oh, I wish it was more like this, or should have had more singing. It was just like everything to me at that point was perfect. And from that point, I was like, yeah, I don't question his musical ability. Like, that's when I find that somebody knows what they like, and then they're able to produce it at a high quality. That's when I give them the most respect as an artist. So and to me, from that point, I remember he had dropped Yeezus, and people were like, oh, what is this? This doesn't. But I'm like, I'm like, wow, this is really, how can you go from making something perfect to making something so distorted that people don't even understand what it is. But then when you really listen to it, you're like, okay, hold on, this is actually good. So you know, and that really helped me moving forward, not judging music initially, you know, just because I don't understand it initially. I feel like I understood Yeezus of it. There was people who didn't like, you know, they were like, oh, I can't even make it past the first song of that album. But I mean, to me, he's just done so. He's gone in so many different directions with his music. It's like, it's really crazy to me. So definitely got to say he's one of the most influential. Period. Not even just for me personally, just from everything he's created and people he's influenced. You know, even to today, like I'm still seeing artists now who took inspiration from him. So right now, I would say Don Toliver might be one of the Kanye-esque right now. So he's making beats, making really good music, and it's all pretty unique. So, but yeah, Kanye or Ye, excuse me, Ye, formerly known as Kanye West.
You know, something that you brought up that's so important for up and coming artists is you have to put the work in. You know, even with all the technology that exists today, the reason why Kanye has, or Ye, excuse me, has had the level of consistency that he's had is he's been willing to put the work in. And what I find is sometimes because of AI and other tools, people feel like they can take so many shortcuts, and shortcuts will help you for a hot minute. But if you want longevity, you can't get around putting the work in. And it's just that's just the way it is. Those people who don't put the work in over time, it shows up. It shows up. So put the work in. Put the work in. And most of these, I mean, all of these people that are on this list, your list and my list, they're people who put the work in. You know, you can't escape that. Well, the last person on my list is a guy who so many of my people, what actually everybody on my list hails from the South, I think. Although Mahalia Jackson might be from, she might be from Chicago. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But Canton Jones is the last person on my list. Canton's 49, the baby of the bunch. And he's considered the godfather of holy hip hop. In fact, if one were to look him up, he would be considered a Christian rapper, even though the rapping came later, at least as far as my exposure to him. He started off singing, but his influence in holy hip hop, as it's called, is really second to none. Now, of course, when people think about Christian rap or gospel rap, probably the biggest selling artist might be Lecrae. But I think when you consider consistency and the effort around making holy hip hop a thing, Canton Jones is one of the leading names. He's one of the people that everybody knows about. And he was a part of a very popular show. Another preacher. Um, I can't remember the first. Was it Atlanta preacher? It was some other preacher. He was a part of that show as well. He's got a hit song that's playing on the radio right now. It's entitled "Praise on Go." I encourage people to check that out. It's hot, and he's definitely a game changer like so many of these other artists are. He's the only artist on my list that I've had the opportunity to actually meet in person. Leontyne Price is actually still alive. She's 99.
Oh wow. Okay, you were one shy of
Yeah,
100. Congratulations to her.
yeah, 99 years old. Yeah. Shout out to Canton Jones.
Shout out to Canton Jones. Okay, for my last person, some people love him, some people hate him, but I got I got Drake. Drake is influential for a number of reasons. But really, right now, I wanted to highlight just on a global scale what he's been able to kind of do for hip hop, just because he's such a gigantic star. A lot of people might put him into the pop category because I think he's just made, he kind of is the one who made hip hop popular. So I remember when Drake was first coming out. I used to watch Degrassi, so that's the show that Drake had started on. And then I remember he had did like a rap on one of the episodes. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then I found out he had a song, and I was like, this song is actually pretty good. And then once he's like, I found out he had like a couple of other songs. I was like, hold on a second. The way that this music sounds, I remember, I feel like I was talking about it on this channel, but this was like one of the first artists I was like, okay, I could let my parents hear this, and you know they might actually like it. So I feel like, especially with what we talk about on this channel in terms of bridging gaps of generations, he was definitely doing that because his music wasn't as vulgar. You know, he had some curse words in it, but it wasn't just like, okay, you gotta bleep out the whole the whole song, or you can't listen to it at all. So yeah, as Drake started making music, and it was off of the back of Lil Wayne at the time. So Lil Wayne was the hottest when Drake came out, and I think that Lil Wayne cosign really was able to solidify him in black culture, but while at the same time he was still, I guess, I don't want to, because at that time I wouldn't say pop, but I guess he was like able to fit into the mainstream so seamlessly with his, you know, his singing, which at the beginning I don't think he could really sing. I think he got a million times better at singing. From what he was doing at the beginning, I was like, some of it was actually awful at the beginning, but you know, he got some singing lessons, found, you know, his pocket in terms of how he wants to, you know, do his melodies and stuff, and now, you know, we're here 20 years later, probably, yeah, 20 years later, and you know, he's still, you know, still doing his thing. And it's so big because he's from Canada, so to me that really just represents how the culture has, you know, gone over borders now. Like, you know, it can't be contained. Like, that's kind of the idea sauce. Like, you know, it can't be contained over the borders. It's gonna leak over, people gonna hear it, they're gonna understand it. And he's bought like a lot of his artists or artists that he was associated with early on in his career are big pop stars now. Like The Weeknd, I would have put him more of a pop star. He might actually even be bigger than Drake when it comes to like YouTube and maybe international. Because The Weeknd is amazing when it comes to music, but I think overall Drake is able to amplify the sounds of like black music. Like his to me, his most recent project, Iceman, is really like it's really him preserving the sound in time. Like if you just iced it and it's like, okay, this is what the sound, if we freeze time right now, this is what it would sound like if you're coming back to it a couple years later, a couple decades later. So I think him being able to collaborate with so many people, even though, you know, that's always led to people saying he's a culture vulture, or you know, it's not necessarily his, or he has people writing for him. Regardless of it, if the music is good, it's like you have to, we can't deny what we find is good music. Like, you know, if we hear something good, we can't just shut it off because we're like, oh, he didn't come up with that original idea. Is the song making your head nod or not? Yes or no? So, yeah, I think just when we're talking about who he's influenced now, and because also who he's influencing by putting other artists on. So it's just like we've been introduced to so many subgenres of hip hop through Drake, or he's kind of been able to take a subgenre and make it mainstream and make it acceptable to be, you know, played in different parties, whether it's like moody music before, you know, if you're playing any sad music, you know, people be like, oh, why are you playing that? Or, you know, now he's got music for the clubs, music for when you're driving. So he got just a vast array of just different sounds that you can always tap into. You got the Caribbean sound, Afro beats. So, and you're like I said, a lot of people don't like that aspect of it, but I mean, you have to look at the influence overall, and you know, you got to give him his flowers for that.
So, as I've said before on this platform, I've been a fan of Drake the rapper. You know, I've never really taken to Drake the singer. I think that of all the people that you could have chose, that you chose him is a big shout out to him, considering the adversity that he's faced over the past few years. I mean, Kendrick Lamar came for him,
Yeah.
and Kendrick Lamar, you know, he got the Super Bowl. We talked about that, and I'm sure Drake felt like with his pedigree that he probably should have been the guy to get the Super Bowl. Pretty sure of that. And so for him to drop this project and have you to say what you just said about the project, and I've heard some really positive critiques about the project. It just goes back to what we were saying earlier about being able to stand the test of time when you put the work in. And it just proved that he's been putting the work in. So even though he took those body shots from Kendrick and the others who come for him, he's like, what? I'm still here.
Yeah.
And to me, he deserves to be mentioned because that sort of epitomizes for me what hardcore hip hop should be about. It should be about, okay, because again, you know, being from that generation where rap really took off out the house parties, the block parties, and all that kind of stuff. And battle rap, he people like LL Cool J and Roxanne Shante, they were battle rappers, and if you couldn't if you couldn't take some licks and keep on ticking, then that stuff. Some rappers they got put out of the game when people made diss records. They weren't able to come back. They were done. So
Yeah.
shout out to Drake. Stand up.
And that's another reason why that's another reason why you can't deny the influence, because even after that, like, you would never think that you could hear it again, but it's like, I mean, the music is still being played like that never really happened. Like, he got a couple of hit songs. I mean, this last album, I can, like, a lot of people have said, music doesn't have much staying power, and I can kind of, I think this one was more people overplayed it, because it's like anytime I open up an app, I'm hearing one of the Drake songs, so it's like now you almost sick of it. But he gave you enough songs where it's like, oh well, I could just go listen to this song over here or to this album. So I think that's working in his favor. Like, I feel like I personally I've heard the album quite a few times. Multiple albums, quite a few times. But it doesn't necessarily, like, it's still good. It's not. When it first dropped, I was like, okay, I was very impressed with how it sounded. I still think it's a great album, but I think it's just, when you're that popular and you have that many songs just back in rotation and people wanting to hear it, then it can kind of get old fast. So I think that's just kind of something that he's suffering from. Not suffering from, but that's, it kind of gets burnt out, overplayed a little bit too quickly these days. Because it's a song, people, like with Drake, he's always been big for like Instagram captions and stuff, and so now people can put the music on it. So every time you open up the app, you hearing one of the Drake songs. And that's just kind of how it gets overplayed, oversaturated. Like, you do like artists when they're a little bit more to yourself, like you're the only person listening to it, so it's not, you're not hearing it everywhere you go, and you can kind of enjoy it a little bit more. That's actually an experiment I've always wanted to try, but I'm too afraid to do it. I wanted to see how many times you could listen to a song you love before you could hate it. So, but I don't know what song I would want to test out, because I like the music. So I wouldn't want to hate the song, but I know it's like a certain number of times, if you, and maybe not in succession, but like if you probably once you hear a song 50 times, then it doesn't have that same appeal to you anymore. So I think with Drake, like, his song has such high replay value, you're gonna hear it a couple of 50 times at least if it's one of the big songs. And I think that happens to a lot of his music. It's just like, it's not so much that the music is bad, people just get tired of hearing it because it's always being played. So,
and I guess, as music people, I guess it depends on how you're listening to it, because
it said that Prince would.
I was about to say, yeah, volumes.
Yeah. Prince, it was said, would listen to a song hundreds of times, but he wasn't just listening to it casually. He was listening to it for different things. So I guess, to your point, I guess it depends on how you're listening to it, because there's a Marcus Miller song that, when you said that, you made me think about it, and I can listen to that song at any time, and I can listen to it several times on end and have a different experience with it. So I don't know if I'm going to try that experience per se,
Yeah.
but I immediately thought of some songs that, I've done the repeat test, and it just, and I don't know. I wonder, you raise an interesting question. I wonder if with certain artists, those artists that think way above, like Prince, whether they're trying to do that, whether they're trying to create music that you can't stop listening to.
Yeah, addictive music.
Whether there's intentionality around that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely think so, because I mean, some of the music is too good to not want to play over and over again. But to me, that's when music almost becomes like candy. It's like you gotta have some restraint and be like, okay, that's enough of this for today. Just put it down. But yeah, there's plenty of songs that actually, that's one of my favorite things, is to find a song that I want to just play on repeat a couple of times. And, then I come back a couple of years later, like I forgot about it, and then I'm listening to it again. So, yeah, right now, I just found a rapper named 10K Duncan. He's actually my niece and nephew came last week, and so this was actually one of the artists who she said, "Oh yeah, I know him from not know him from high school, but she was like she listened to him back in high school." So I was like, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, he's a younger artist, so like more new, but just to kind of know. But I've been having a lot of his songs on repeat, and it's like, okay, this is cool. So
And he's a rapper.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna check him out. 10K Duncan, you said.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I know we're getting up against time, but I have to ask you this: who is maybe an artist who you very well could have put on the list, but you couldn't put everybody because I put the cap of 5. Who was somebody you was thinking about including?
Who else was I thinking about including? Let me see my actual. I think I probably. Probably could have included like. I probably would have included Future.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because of his current influence, like just the people who he's been influencing. I think I've really finally. I didn't understand Future all the way till I went to like Georgia State, and I was like really in Atlanta, and then going to like parties out there. I'm like, okay, I see, the point of this music, and then from that point, like, just I hear the sounds that he taps into, and the cadences, flow, all of that. So and he's influenced by Dungeon Family, so you got the old school influence, and he's talking what he's talking about. So he's pretty influential, especially on the younger generation, and just music from Atlanta in general. So you hear a lot of people sounding like Future. So yeah, he's definitely one of the more influential people who would have made this list. Who else? I mean, of course, I thought Jay-Z. I was trying to stay away from the basics. Like I didn't want to do Tupac and Biggie, and I wanted to kind of have a little bit more in-depth conversation, because they weren't really my generation. Like I had to go back and listen to them retroactively, so it wasn't growing up impacting me. I just kind of knew their influence based off of what everyone else would say about them. So I was kind of born into a world where they were influential instead of observing their influence directly myself.
Yeah. Interesting. That's interesting that you took that approach, because of course um, a lot of the work that people like Leontyne Price or uh, Mahalia Jackson did, and even Otis Redding, all of them were really before my time. But I benefited by their influence. So it's interesting how the thinking that went into how you created your list, and how I came about creating my list. Just that was interesting. You shared that perspective. And what's funny is when me asking you that question, who else would have made the list? This list was different for me just because I'm that guy who normally struggles with these kind of confining lists because I can think of so many people. But I don't know. It was these 5 and that was it. Now, of course, now that I ask you that question, I can think of, 1 or 2 people, but it was just those 5 people just came off, I put them down, and that was it, which was, like I said, that's different for me, because usually, I just scratched out 7 names, say, okay, I'm gonna go with these 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think mine's probably would have been different if you were saying like favorite artist or something. Which I mean, a lot of them probably still would be maybe not Anita or and Herbie, like, but yeah, just from influence, those are between 50, Kanye, and Drake. Those are probably the most influential artists that I've known. But they're not necessarily my favorite rappers or overall favorite artists. Kanye is, but 50 Cent wouldn't necessarily be my favorite rapper anymore, just because, like, as time goes on, and this is kind of how I feel about like Tupac and Biggie. Like, so many new artists have catalogs that are just burying everyone else from just because they have more time. You know, more the technology is better for them to get out higher quality music. So, like, the amount of music that Future has is really crazy compared to anybody. Well, I mean, Drake has a lot of songs, but just people in general don't have as much music as Future does. So even just trying to, like, if I were to tell people like music for Future to listen to, I wouldn't even know where they would start, because it's kind of like you got to know the back when he was doing the mixtapes and all of that. So just, and as time goes on, I can see, you know, when people are gonna say NBA YoungBoy is gonna be major influential, like, he probably would have been on the list really too, probably, if we're just keeping it strictly influential, because I've seen his impact on the youth and the new artists who are coming into the game trying to, you know, copy his blueprint. So I said Lil Wayne, because it was gonna be between Drake and Lil Wayne, because Wayne probably would have taken that spot, but yeah, I mean, Drake is I think he's past Wayne in influence. That's an interest. I don't know exactly how I feel about that, but he's big. He's just bigger to the point where that almost seems like Wayne's claim to fame in this time. Just like, if you're looking at hip hop at a snapshot at this point, like, since he's not releasing anything at the moment, the last project I really liked by Wayne was the Carter 5. So that was really, Carter 6 was cool. That was the last project he dropped. But yeah, I really like the Carter 5. So, but Wayne is you know, forever a legend. So, you know, shout out to him as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. As always, really, really good conversation, man. I have to ask you this, and then I know we're gonna wrap. And I know I do this a lot when we're trying to wrap. But since 50 made your list, and I kind of tried to get bait you into this conversation some time ago. As you know, the King of the South has been challenging your guy to a duel,
Mm-hmm.
and
T.I.
I have to ask you, yeah, I have to ask you, what do you think? What do you think? Because let me just say that, oh my goodness. Now I've realized that they're actually friends, and it was kind of sort of mostly playful. But when what's the name of the platform that they were using for
Versus.
those verses, right?
Mm-hmm.
When one of my faves from my youth, uh, KRS-One, because you know I'm from the Boogie Down,
Mm.
and he decided to go against BDK on verses. Oh my goodness! It was. Did you hear about it?
I
It
didn't
was
see that one.
annihilation.
I didn't see
Yeah, it
that
was
one.
an annihilation.
Mm.
So I just wonder. I don't know. What would you expect to happen if Ti and 50 went at it on verses?
It's a lot of factors into that, because I definitely think they both have 20 strong songs. I think where Ti would have the advantages that he's has more modern music than 50. I think 50's catalog, a lot of it falls under like classics now, so it's not necessarily like you know, he could play a couple of tracks off of Get Rich or Die Trying. I just think that T.I., his catalog from, and it to me it really depends on where the verses would be held at, and you know, the audience, because it's just like, you know, if it's in New York, it's a different energy than if it's in Atlanta, and if it's in a neutral place. And I think that's where, because I know so many people who know T.I.'s catalog. Like, you know, when they're having this conversation, it's kind of people who've always been in New York and always been a 50 fan talking to people who have always been T.I. fans, and it's like they have neither fan base knows the other one's like true catalog. Like, really just the other day was playing the karaoke game, and somebody had picked T.I. For the versus game, and then Dead and Gone So Bad, that was like a song from Paper Trail, but it's a really deep song when you like listen to, you know, what he's talking about. So T.I. has a lot of depth in his music. I think probably his music is definitely probably deeper than 50s. So it really just depends on the audience, like because it's just like, I mean, but if we're just going by hits, then it's like, you know, 50 could come out with some hits that, you know, wouldn't even let T.I. get his song in, you know. So it depends on who's going first, what energy the songs they play, because to me it's more about song selection. You can have the best catalog, but if you pick the songs in the wrong sequence, or it's just not rocking with the crowd, then you can lose easily. So like I said, it's too many factors for me to count in. I wouldn't be surprised either way it went. I do think T.I. probably has more songs. I would say he definitely has more songs, recognizable songs though, and to the capacity of which 50 songs is known. Cause my thing with 50 is that like a lot of his smash hits, since they're so popular, they might not get the same reaction as like, oh, I forgot about, like everybody knows a lot of the 50 Cent hits. So, you know, he kind of loses that element of surprise, and I think that's something that T.I. would have a lot of. Be like, oh, I forgot all about this song. You know, I don't think 50 did enough features and stuff like that to by himself though, because then if we're bringing in G Unit and, you know, songs that he's featured in, because I was like 50 does have a lot of really great music, but like I said, it comes down to how you actually play the songs, and audience, and just overall people's reaction to it. So that'd be my answer. I couldn't really, but yeah, if I had to, I would put my money on 50, but I wouldn't be surprised if T.I. could get out with a W.
That's a good answer. I just wanted to get your feedback because I know that you probably have a deeper knowledge of the catalog than I do. I will say, as I shared with you in a message that I sent you, I've been really impressed by the movement that T.I. has had on his current hit, and how he's been able to integrate it. He was able to integrate it into the NBA playoffs, and then back that up by getting it involved in this whole World Cup thing. So I always pay attention when artists are able to figure out creative ways to get their music in different hands and distribution points. Just like what you said about I think it was the Backstreet Boys CD being in your McDonald's bag or
Yeah,
something like
Burger
that.
King.
That's super
Marketing.
creative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
and it helped them. They had their time in the sun for sure.
yeah, the
They
boy
sold a lot of
King
records.
times. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that'd be a good place to wrap it up today. I think we had a lot of good discussions about music in general. Got to pay homage to some great black artists who've come. You know, shout out to Black Music Month. Thank everybody who joined us tonight and, you know, watch in the future. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will catch you guys next time.